does a disquieting thought sometimes arise, that despite your conscious intentions, certain phrases you habitually employ might be subtly influencing, even manipulating, others in ways you don't fully realize? This uncomfortable question penetrates the comforting narrative of innocent communication, demanding a rigorous self-assessment. Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the human psyche and its unconscious dynamics, recognized that our language, far from being merely a neutral tool, is often a potent reflection of our unintegrated shadow, a conduit for hidden needs, fears, or desires to control the external world. Society, often focused on overt acts of manipulation, frequently overlooks the insidious power of subtle linguistic patterns that, without malice, can erode trust, foster resentment, and prevent genuine, reciprocal connection. To remain oblivious to these veiled tactics, to attribute all communication breakdowns to external misunderstanding, is a deeply perilous path that ultimately hinders authentic self-awareness and perpetuates cycles of relational imbalance. You may find yourself navigating recurring misunderstandings, strained relationships, or a sense that others are withdrawing, despite your belief in your own good intentions. This troubling repetition, the feeling that your words are somehow creating unintended discords, often your deepest intuition signaling the presence of these unconsciously manipulative phrases. This video is not an accusation. It is an immersive journey into the subtle psychological mechanisms of verbal influence, a practical manual to identify, interpret, and ultimately transform these hidden perils, to liberate yourself and cultivate truly authentic communication. Prepare yourself, for the wisdom you are about to receive promises a transformative unveiling of your linguistic patterns and the true path to relational integrity. The first principle we must grasp, often obscured by our desire for harmony, is the principle of the implied obligation. This dictates that certain phrases, seemingly innocent or even helpful on the surface, carry an unconscious expectation that the other person must respond in a particular way, creating a subtle pressure or guilt that curtails their autonomy. These are phrases that leave little room for genuine choice, subtly coercing others into compliance rather than inviting their willing participation. This is not open command. It is veiled demand, draining the other person's freedom and fostering resentment. This insidious principle connects intimately with Jung's concept of the shadow, particularly the unacknowledged desire for control or the repressed fear of rejection if a direct request were made. When we avoid directness, our unconscious seeks subtle ways to exert influence. Consider the classic archetype of the passive-aggressive mother, who uses guilt trips or thinly veiled suggestions to control her children's behavior, rather than issuing clear directives. Her seemingly innocuous phrases, laden with implied obligation, effectively drain the child's sense of self-determination, demonstrating the profound peril of linguistic patterns that mask genuine demands. In the contemporary landscape, this principle manifests with chilling clarity. Someone might say, "I spent all day on this, so I hope you like it," implicitly obligating the receiver to express effusive praise, even if they don't genuinely feel it. An individual might use phrases like, "I thought you would want to help me with this," subtly shaming another into assisting rather than making a direct request. Even in seemingly polite social interactions, saying, "You must come to my party," rather than "I'd love for you to come," creates an implied obligation that can feel burdensome, eroding genuine willingness. To truly identify this dangerous behavior, look beyond their words and observe their consistent patterns of action. Especially when no one is watching, or when they believe they can act with impunity. Pay attention to how they treat those they deem beneath them, or how they react when their self-interest is threatened. Ask, do their actions demonstrate a genuine concern for others' welfare, or are their good deeds always transactional, or for show? This disciplined observation of their fundamental lack of a reciprocal conscience will be a far more accurate indicator of danger than any superficial display of charm or feigned regret. To truly identify this dangerous behavior, pay rigorous attention to moments when you feel others' responses are compelled rather than genuinely given. Ask, am I using language that subtly forces or pressures the other person into a specific reaction? What unconscious demand am I masking behind this phrase? Begin to consciously rephrase your requests or statements to offer genuine choice and respect the other's autonomy. This disciplined shift towards directness and transparency will dismantle the shadow's coercive power and foster authentic, willing engagement. The second shadow principle, often creating immense resentment and distance, is the principle of displaced responsibility through platitudes. This posits that certain phrases, seemingly offering comfort or understanding, are actually used to subtly shift responsibility away from oneself, or to avoid engaging with the true emotional depth of a situation. They are verbal shortcuts used to dismiss uncomfortable realities or to offer facile solutions, leaving the other person feeling unheard, invalidated, and ultimately frustrated by the lack of genuine engagement. This principle directly relates to Jung's core concept of the shadow, particularly the disowned aspects of personal accountability, vulnerability, or emotional depth. When we avoid these, we resort to linguistic mechanisms that keep us at a superficial distance. Recall the archetype of the bystander or the armchair philosopher who offers trite advice, or empty condolences without truly entering into the suffering of another. Their words, though seemingly well-intentioned, serve to protect themselves from emotional discomfort rather than genuinely connecting, demonstrating how disowned responsibility can manifest as hollow communication. In modern society, this manifests with heartbreaking frequency. Someone might respond to a friend's deep personal struggle with "everything happens for a reason" or "it'll be okay," effectively dismissing their pain and avoiding genuine empathy. An individual might use phrases like, "I'm sure you'll figure it out," to sidestep offering real support or guidance, placing the entire burden of solution onto the other. Even in professional settings, phrases like, "we all have to deal with challenges," can be used to deflect from acknowledging specific systemic issues or personal accountability. To overcome this insidious internal danger, begin by consciously listening to your own responses for superficiality or Ask, am I using this phrase to genuinely connect, or to avoid discomfort or responsibility? Am I truly engaging with the depth of the situation, or offering a verbal shortcut? Practice active listening and validate the other person's experience directly, even if it's uncomfortable. Offer genuine presence and specific support, rather than relying on generalized platitudes. This conscious act of authentic engagement will bridge emotional distances and foster genuine connection, rather than creating resentment. Asterisk, the third shadow principle, often leading to subtle forms of emotional blackmail, is the principle of implied sacrifice or guilt. This posits that certain phrases subtly highlight your own sacrifices, efforts, or suffering, not to genuinely share a burden, but to induce guilt in the other person and coerce them into compliance or a specific action. This is a form of emotional manipulation where your perceived hardship becomes a leverage point, making the other person feel obligated to reciprocate or acquiesce to your desires, regardless of their own capacity or willingness. This deep-seated principle is closely linked to Jung's concept of the martyr archetype when it operates from a shadow position, perpetually giving to the point of exhaustion and then leveraging that exhaustion for control. It also relates to the shadow of passive aggression. Consider the dramatic figure who, after performing a selfless act, constantly reminds others of their immense sacrifice, thereby creating an unpayable emotional debt. Their seemingly virtuous actions become tools of manipulation, demonstrating how an unexamined need for control or recognition can manifest as debilitating guilt trips. In modern society, this manifests profoundly in various contexts. Someone might say, "After all I've done for you, you can't even do this one thing for me," implicitly shaming the other into compliance. An individual might constantly recount their tireless efforts or personal struggles, not to seek support, but to elicit sympathy and make others feel guilty for their own relative ease. Even in professional settings, a colleague might frequently remind others of how hard they worked on a project, hoping to preempt criticism or ensure favorable treatment, leveraging their perceived sacrifice for personal gain. To liberate yourself from this restrictive pattern, cultivate a profound awareness of your motivations for sharing your efforts or struggles. When you find yourself highlighting your sacrifices, pause and ask, am I genuinely sharing for connection, or am I trying to induce guilt or obligation? What outcome am I secretly hoping to achieve by emphasizing my hardship? Practice making direct, respectful requests without emotional leveraging. If you choose to give, do so freely, without expectation of a specific return or the creation of an emotional debt. This conscious act of giving freely, without hidden strings, will transform your interactions from manipulative to genuinely supportive. If you're finding this profound exploration of subtle manipulation and its linguistic forms to be insightful and believe this message resonates with your quest for deeper self-awareness and more authentic communication, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications so you don't miss any content that will further empower your journey towards integrity in relationships. If you feel a persistent yearning to break free from unconscious patterns that might undermine trust, to finally move beyond veiled language and cultivate relationships built on genuine honesty and mutual respect, know that this inner calling is not a fantasy. It's your authentic self preparing for a profound liberation, a reclaiming of inherent self-responsibility and a truly transparent way of relating. There are potent principles and practices that can illuminate this path of autonomy and self-affirmation, empowering you to live with an unshakable clarity and a profound sense of purpose. In the pinned comment, we have made available resources that were carefully crafted for souls like yours, ready to experience their most profound personal revolution. We have begun to unveil the profound truths about how certain phrases might be unconsciously manipulative, moving beyond overt deceit to the insidious power of language. You've seen how implied obligation, displaced responsibility, and guilt-tripping can subtly erode trust and create relational imbalance. But these are merely the foundational insights. Now, we delve into the more complex, yet equally vital, principles that, once understood, unlock even deeper levels of personal freedom and relational wisdom, allowing you to communicate with profound authenticity and integrity. The coming insights are not for the faint of heart. They require a courageous willingness to confront the hard truths of self-awareness in speech. The fourth principle, often camouflaged by a narrative of concern or care, is the principle of undermining through feigned helplessness. This posits that certain phrases are used to subtly diminish your own capacity for action or responsibility, thereby forcing others to step in and solve your problems, or to provide constant reassurance. This is not genuine vulnerability, but a strategic display of inadequacy, implicitly asking others to take on burdens that are rightfully yours, or to constantly offer emotional labor. The manipulation lies in the deliberate, though unconscious, disempowerment of self to empower the obligation of others. This perspective challenges the ego's subtle strategies for avoiding effort or accountability, emphasizing its potential for disguised dependency. It is intimately tied to Jung's concept of the pure etinus or puella eterna, when it manifests as an avoidance of adult responsibility, or the shadow of helplessness. When we refuse to own our own agency, we subtly manipulate others into overfunctioning for us. Consider the archetype of the ailing child or the delicate flower whose perceived fragility subtly dictates the behavior of those around them, compelling constant care and attention. Their apparent weakness becomes a source of indirect power, demonstrating how an unacknowledged fear of capability can manifest as debilitating helplessness. This profound principle plays out in myriad ways in contemporary life, often unnoticed. Someone might constantly say, "I'm just so bad with technology," subtly forcing a friend to troubleshoot all their device issues, despite their actual capacity to learn. An individual might repeatedly claim, "I just can't make decisions," subtly compelling others to make choices for them, thereby avoiding personal responsibility for outcomes. Even in professional settings, a colleague might perpetually state, "I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start," subtly pushing their workload onto others, rather than seeking genuine support or learning to manage their tasks. To embrace the principle of undermining through feigned helplessness, cultivate radical self-responsibility and acknowledge your own competencies. When you find yourself using phrases that convey helplessness, pause and ask, "Am I genuinely incapable? Or am I unconsciously trying to get someone else to do this for me, or to seek endless reassurance? What responsibility am I trying to avoid?" Practice taking on challenges, making your own decisions, and finding your own solutions, even if it feels uncomfortable. This conscious act of owning your capabilities will dismantle the subtle manipulation of feigned helplessness, fostering genuine competence and reciprocal support. Finally, we encounter the most profound and often the most resistant shadow principle, the principle of the ulterior motive, disguised as altruism. This posits that certain phrases, seemingly offered with kindness, generosity, or genuine concern, actually carry an unspoken, hidden agenda that benefits the speaker. This is a form of manipulation where the overt message is benevolent, but the underlying intention is to gain control, extract information, elicit a specific reaction, or secure an advantage without transparency. The danger lies in the deceptive warmth of the language, which masks a self-serving or controlling intention, leaving others feeling used or betrayed when the true motive is revealed. This intricate principle transcends simple deception and touches upon the profound cunning of the unconscious mind to achieve its aims indirectly. It is the core of passive-aggressive manipulation, where power is exerted under the guise of virtue. Jung's work on complexes and their ability to drive behavior in indirect ways is highly relevant here, as the unacceptable behavior is often serving a deeper, unacknowledged need within the complex. Consider the archetype of the wolf in sheep's clothing or the false benevolent guardian who offers assistance or guidance that always serves their own agenda. Their seemingly altruistic words and actions are designed to secure their own power, resources, or control over others, demonstrating the profound danger of veiled self. This manifests in countless ways in contemporary life, often leaving others bewildered and hurt. Someone might say, "I'm only telling you this for your own good," when their true motive is to criticize, control, or spread gossip. An individual might offer help with a project only to subtly take credit for your work or gain access to your resources. Even seemingly innocent questions like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" can carry an ulterior motive of undermining your confidence or discouraging your actions, disguised as concern. The manipulation lies in the discrepancy between the expressed benevolence and the hidden, self-serving agenda. To fully integrate the principle of the ulterior motive disguised as altruism, cultivate radical honesty about your own true intentions before you speak. When you find yourself using phrases that seem benevolent, pause and ask, "What is my real motivation for saying this? Is there a hidden agenda or benefit for me?" Practice direct, transparent communication, stating your needs or desires clearly, without resorting to veiled altruism. If your motive is to genuinely help, ensure there are no strings attached or hidden expectations. This conscious act of aligning your words with your true intentions will dismantle the subtle manipulation of disguised altruism, fostering genuine trust and integrity in your communication. The choice, as always, rests in your hands. Use it to gain clarity, to liberate yourself from unconscious patterns that might harm relationships, and to cultivate a deeper, more mature understanding of human interaction. But never, under any circumstances, to lose your capacity for genuine compassion, or to deny the potential for growth and positive change. Your path to identifying and transforming unconsciously manipulative phrases is not a destination, but an ongoing process of courageous self-reflection, a continuous refinement of your communication, and a radical commitment to living an authentic, integrated life. Embrace the journey and allow your deepened wisdom to illuminate your most authentically truthful path forward. In the comments below, share which of these 5 unconsciously manipulative phrases you recognize most in your own communication, or have encountered frequently from others, and what small, actionable step you plan to take this week to communicate with more authenticity. If this deep exploration of language and the profound journey of psychological integrity speaks to your soul, subscribe to the channel to continue unlocking the intricate secrets of the human psyche and cultivating a more profound understanding of true connection. Your like is a powerful affirmation that this knowledge holds true value, and a clear signal that this journey of transparent communication is one worth continuing together.